Welcome to another edition of Q&A Social Security Disability Today. I'm your host, Attorney Anthony Reeves. Let's get popping. Our first question is, why are my health doctors, or I'm presuming the Department of Health doctors, only prescribing over-the-counter medication? And actually, this question kind of came up because someone had asked me the question, why is it that my doctor is leery or has cut down on prescribing more significant pain medications? Okay. I'm not sure, depending on what part of the country you are in. There are various parts of the country where the governments, whether it be the state and the feds, are cracking down on what we call pill mills. These are places where basically medical providers are over-prescribing, and I mean extremely over-prescribing narcotic pain medication. As most of you probably are aware, the more significant medications, meaning the ones that require a prescription, have the tendency to be addictive. So what's happening is that the government is cracking down on individuals who are, quote unquote, who they perceive as over-prescribing medication. These are people where literally people just go in and they literally prescribe the medication. There's no background or anything like that. You can just kind of get what you need right over the counter, as opposed to going through a doctor and going through your normal steps. Now, most of you out there let me back up a second. Most of these pill mills basically represent the small minority of locations that actually are abusing the system. The problem is that a lot of doctors out there are becoming a little bit more conservative in their treatment in light of the fact that governments are cracking down. I was speaking to a buddy of mine who's a doctor, and we had talked to about that, and she had mentioned to me that there was one doctor in one state where it was presumed that he was overly prescribing, and I think he was actually abusing the system, and they actually gave him prison time. So what she basically told me is that a lot of doctors are becoming more and more conservative about the treatment regimen. What I mean by conservative, what does that mean? That means where maybe previously they might have gone to the more stronger medications right out the gate when they recognized that you had significant problems. Now they're taking a more conservative approach, meaning they're going with more of the over-the-counter stuff and allowing the file to develop and letting the specialists make those determinations, meaning a pain management doctor, a rheumatologist, neurologist, someone who has that those types of medications are a normal part of their treatment regimen. So if you are in a situation where you're with a doctor who typically used to provide you those medications, but they don't, make sure you are very vocal if the over-the-counter medications are not helping you. They're not going to abandon getting you the treatment that you need altogether, meaning referring you to a rheumatologist or neurologist, orthopedist, or pain management doctor. That's not what they're going to do. What they're going to do is they're going to be a little bit more conservative because of the fact that they know there's a possibility that they could be in a situation where their treatment of you using more significant medications may come under scrutiny. So don't freak out if your doctor decides to not prescribe you those heavyweight medications that you're used to receiving. You just make sure you let your doctors know if the medication's not working. So if they have to make a determination that they have to do something a little bit more significant in terms of referring you to more specialists, they can do so, and it's properly documented in your file. Janelle Wiley asked a very good question talking about people with chronic illnesses, and she's got a couple of different ones, so I'm going to tackle each one at a time. For today, I'm going to address the one where she's talking about what happens if you've got a chronic illness and the medication treats it, but it does not treat you to the condition where you're able to return to a full-time employment. Meaning, let me go to her example where she's saying where you have a medication only partially treats the disease but doesn't make a person able to work 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, or they're going to end up missing 3 or 4 days a month because of the medication they're receiving. The key to this instance is that you want to be detailed in, one, making sure you let your doctors know the problems that you're having from the medication, meaning in terms of what problems you're having in terms of the side effects, the issues that you have when you're taking it, how if it knocks you out, if it resolves it, but how long it resolves it. Then, when you're discussing this with Social Security, you got to make sure you're very clear about how the medication helps you, but describe how it helps you. Now, keep this in mind. This is where I tell people consistency is the key. What you tell Social Security, make sure you tell your doctors as well so they can document it. And when you ask me, what do you mean by that? Well, if you're saying that your medication that you're taking right now is so heavyweight that you have days, like let's say, for instance, it lasts for like 4 or 5 days, but the first day you take it, it knocks you out for like a day, meaning you're just passed out sleeping. Then you're okay after that. Well, if this happens 2 or 3 times a month, make sure you let the doctors know that they can document in your file. So when you go to Social Security, you tell them, hey, I'm about 3 or 4 days when I can't leave the house because this medication has me knocked out, or my condition has me to the point where 3 or 4 days out the month, I can't function even with the medication. Make sure you document it. I know a lot of times we want to focus on the fact that we have a chronic illness that is not going to go away anytime soon. And Social Security recognizes that. But the reality is that unless you discuss it in detail in terms of how it impacts your ability to function, Social Security is not going to know. You got to make sure you're consistent. Make sure when you tell them in paper, in print, and your doctors, so that when they're looking at all the evidence, they can put it all together and say, hey, they told their doctor, the doctor is maybe adjusting the medication, and the person is still having problems. Those are things, because guess what? If you're taking something like, let's say you're taking a medication that has 100 milligrams, and it's knocking you out, but there's no indication in the medical records that you've told the doctor that it's knocking you out. How's the doctor going to adjust your medication? Because the judge is going to ask you that, and Social Security is going to ask you that. Have you told your doctors that the medication is knocking you out? So guess what? Once you do that and they adjust it, if it's still causing you problems, you can demonstrate to the court that you're doing what the doctors told you to do, but yet it's still giving you problems. The key is being consistent in your explanation and being consistent in complaining to your doctor, so this way it all flows consistently through your records.